Hi, I'm Meilnda Marks, and I cover cloud and application security for ESG.
And I'm Rob Strechay. I cover cloud and DevOps for ESG.
So, Rob, it's great to be with you today. And I cover cloud and application security. So, we talk a lot about helping security scale with modern software development. And we talk a lot about developer-centric tools. And I get asked all the time, do developers and DevOps actually care about security? And would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, and it's a great thing because what we've been finding in a lot of our research, we recently did a distributed cloud research series, and one of them was around application infrastructure. And when we were talking to DevOps and IT ops people, what we saw was that they really were using things like observability to actually help them collaborate and talk better together. And I think that developers do care about security, but they care about it within the application, their purview, their business unit. But sometimes they're not doing the think globally part, and that usually falls on IT ops. So I think there's still a long way to go between that and bringing security in as kind of the third leg in the stool with either SecDevOps or security folks that are outside of their business unit. They're trying to integrate them in.
Interesting. Yeah. And one thing I wanted to dig into with you is you just came from AWS, and cloud security providers are really trying to build in a lot of security features into their platforms. So can you talk a little bit about that and how those cloud service providers are thinking about security and what they're providing to their customers?
Yeah, I think they all take it very seriously. I can tell you from being at AWS, it was number one thing that we thought about when we were building out our service. They're taking a lot of the internally developed tools that they've used for years and years and then forming those into services. So when they start to look for what tools do we use, they first look for internal services that they can leverage. Sometimes they roll them out as paid for services. Sometimes they roll them out as enhancements to existing services, such as, helping with finding unencrypted buckets within S3. They rolled that out as a free service to help people have a better security presence on their objects and at the object layer. But I think one of the things that customers and end users need to really consider, and I'm very interested in your thoughts on this, is that they don't take a more holistic approach unless they build that higher level service. So it's kind of, you end up with a collection and tool sprawl, even inside of a company like AWS. How are folks dealing with that, and what are the other vendors outside of the cloud doing?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. And this is why I love covering this space, is because I see a lot of movements where the cloud service providers are trying to incorporate those things. You can see this pattern of trying to make IT security ops kind of invisible, just so that developers can do what they need to do without having to get into the details of these things. So it totally makes sense for them to try to incorporate it or acquire startups and, try to build this stuff in. And then another thing that we found with our research is that customers don't want to put their eggs in one basket. So you don't see them all going to one cloud service provider. So even if they have security features and capabilities from the cloud service providers, they don't necessarily want to be using them because they're trying to manage multi-cloud environments. So I know there are some cloud service providers who do more multi-cloud security and have some offerings there. But for the most part, I think, organizations really want to work with security vendors to help them centrally manage and give them the tools that they need to do. And, with security for agile and modern software development processes, they really have to think about how to get visibility and control. A lot of the security features still are pretty intensive in terms of setup or configurations. So they're looking to security vendors to automate some of those features. And it's really interesting, too, to see that there are really good partnerships and integrations between the cloud service providers and the security vendors, right? The security vendors are pulling the data from the cloud service providers. And then also there's some of those CSPs that have added those security products. The back end is through some security vendors. So it's really interesting to see that movement there.
Yeah, and I think that hits on a lot of things. And I think, when we've talked before, and, is security shifting left? So organizations, what we've seen and what I saw, even at Amazon, is when you had a security partner, and it was a true partnership between development and security. And you could get that in earlier, and you had them in the planning phases and the architecture phases. You could build security in from the beginning. The tools are the tools. And I think it becomes the culture of the company and how they actually develop. Can you shift it left or not? It's going to be an interesting thing to see how far people integrate into that DevOps and developers, the security mantra, and building out in a secure manner.
Absolutely. It's going to be a really fun area to track. So look forward to more conversations with you, Rob.
Same here. Thanks, Meilnda.
Thanks.